One summer day in 1983, a lady named Victoria brought her pet pig named Priscilla to a lake in Houston, Texas. Now, Priscilla's family of pigs were great swimmers, and so was Priscilla. So Priscilla decides to take a swim in the lake. And that's when a child named Anthony Melton, an 11-year-old child, went too far deep in the lake and starts struggling to stay afloat. Priscilla, being nearby, looks around and decides to swim near Anthony. Now, she has a harness on her back, and she allowed Anthony to grab onto the harness. And once Anthony grabbed onto the harness, they both plopped under the water. But just a few seconds later, you see them both plop up back again to the surface, and you see Priscilla just dragging Anthony across the lake, 150 feet. Mind you, this was a piglet. She was just a few months old. Okay, she was only about 45 pounds. Anthony was about 95 pounds, or double her weight. And mind you, Anthony was a stranger to Priscilla. Yet Priscilla towed this child to the shoreline, saving his life. A piglet saved a human's life. She was aware of what was happening. It shows that she was aware and she understood the struggle and decided to help, saving someone's life. In 2014, Mr. G, who was a goat, and Jelly Bean, who was a donkey, were rescued from this terrible animal hoarding situation. But as they were being rescued, they were both separated, Jelly Bean and Mr. G. They got sent to different sanctuaries. So, being far away from Jelly Bean, Mr. G was sad. He became depressed. He wouldn't eat. He wouldn't move from one side of the barn. And after a physical examination that the sanctuary did on Mr. G, they found that there's nothing wrong with him. And they realized that he was mourning. He was super sad. So a volunteer at the sanctuary decided to travel 14 hours to find Jelly Bean again and reunite the pair. And as soon as Jelly Bean arrives at the sanctuary, Mr. G perks up immediately. He wouldn't leave Jelly Bean's side. He was happy again, and he started eating again. Mr. G refused to eat for 6 days because he missed Jelly Bean so badly. And the sanctuary vowed to never separate the two so that they could live their lives together. But just think about how much this hurt Mr. G to be separated from his friend. Friendship was so important to him. In 1998, Joanne and her husband decided to go on vacation to Pennsylvania in Lake Erie. They brought along their pet pig. One day, Jack decided to go fishing with his buddy, leaving Joanne and her pet pig, Lulu, together in the house alone. Joanne suddenly collapses. She falls to the floor. She has tremendous amounts of chest pain and arm pain. She can't move. She thought this heart attack would be her last one. She tried grasping for everything she could to get up, to walk out the door. She tried grasping on tables and chairs. She couldn't. The pain in her arm was just too intense. And her calls for help would reach no one. Nobody was around her to help. But then that's when Lulu the pig comes up by her side, looking down at her, and senses something's wrong. She licks her. She starts to cry and grunt a little bit in fear. But Joanne, still in distress, still sad about this event, she told Lulu, just go to bed, Lulu, go to bed. Don't worry about me. But Lulu knew she had to do something. Lulu walks out the front door through a little door flap, and on the way out, she scrapes her leg because she's too big, it's too hard to squeeze by that door without getting hurt. But she goes outside and she goes through this path that leads to a road, which she typically walked before, so she understood the road, that there'd be traffic and people coming with cars. Although Jack, Joanne's husband, told the pig never to cross the road, she did. She crossed the road this time, and she goes right in the middle of the road and plays dead. because she knew that playing dead would attract people. So she's playing dead on the road. People come by, they look, but they just keep going on. They keep passing by. Now, mind you, Joanne was still on the floor in the trailer on her own, trying to call for help. She thought this was it. She was saying her final prayers. She thought this was it. But after being unsuccessful, Lulu goes back inside. She walks back in through the door flap, checks on Joanne. Then she goes back out again through the door flap, getting hurt again on the way, going into the middle road, playing dead, trying to attract people. Still unsuccessful, so she goes back inside, checks on Joanne, and she does this for 45 minutes, back and forth, back and forth. When finally, Lulu, outside playing dead, she manages to get somebody's attention. Somebody gets out their car, she looks at Lulu, and Lulu is looking distressed. She's grunting, she's crying. So the man follows Lulu. Lulu led him right to Joanne. He knocks on the door, she hears Joanne yelling. He goes inside and calls the ambulance. The ambulance comes in, and the paramedics said to Joanne that if this was any longer, if this was 15 minutes longer, she would have died of a heart attack. Lulu saved Joanne's life. And the man that found Lulu said that she expressed concern and fear in her eyes. And from that day forward, people loved Lulu and gave her lots of attention and praise. In 1995, a cow named Emily in Massachusetts was in line for the slaughterhouse. She was next in line to be slaughtered. Now, Emily was 1,600 pounds. She was a big girl, but she was strong. Just as all the other cows in the slaughterhouse were being slaughtered, Emily realized something was wrong. She understood that something wasn't right here. Just as she was about to be slaughtered, it's noon, and it's lunchtime for the workers. So the workers all decide to go for lunch, and Emily, standing there between these two big gates that are locking her in the line, she decides to jump and leaped 5 feet over the gate. And she bolts for freedom. She runs. She runs across. The slaughterhouse workers are trying to chase her. She outruns them. She evaded anybody trying to catch her. Now, she was off the hook for now, but remember, this was Massachusetts in the middle of the winter, in a record snow winter. And she had survived the next few weeks on her own. So, a few weeks go by and she's scavenging for food, foraging for food, refusing to go back. People trying to find her, police trying to find her, given orders to shoot Emily whenever they see her on sight because they want to bring her back to the slaughterhouse for at least meat. And Emily's still out there. People, residents in the area say that they would see her running with a herd of deer. And she would get lessons on how to forage from the deer. And also residents would help her out with some food and stuff here and there. But for 40 days, Emily survived the wilderness, being without any caregiver at all. She managed to find 40 pounds of food every day to keep her healthy, alive, and warm. But soon, Emily's story reaches all the local newspapers. It gets out, everybody's talking about it in town, and some people wanted to rescue Emily. So one person did. They rescued her, and they bring her back to a sanctuary. Her story captivated so many people. It showed immense will to survive. It showed determination to survive and to be free. And so people in the town commissioned a statue in her honor, in Emily's honor. It's still there today in Massachusetts. And Emily went on to live for years after. But unfortunately, 2003, she died of leukemia. But she died in her sleep, peacefully. But she's still revered by so many in the area for her perseverance and will to survive. Now, were these stories just a few fluke incidents where the animals happened to be in the right place at the right time by accident? Is this what's happening here, or is there something deeper going on here? Is there something we're tragically overlooking in these stories? I mean, the traits demonstrated by these animals in these stories, right? Compassion in the case of Priscilla, friendship and love in the case of Mr. G, determination and awareness in the case of Lulu, the will to survive and the fight for freedom in the case of Emily. I mean, these are undeniable traits that, if seen in humans, we would call them heroic. Yet, in animals, we hesitate before we use these kinds of terms. We feel like these terms can't apply to animals. We tell ourselves that animals can't be like us, that they're incapable of being anything more than items or commodities. And so many of us dismiss these stories as, oh, these animals are just very instinctual. They have strong instincts. But evidence is building that these animals don't have just strong instincts. There's much more to them. Decision making, problem solving, empathy, compassion, personality. Animals are capable of all those things and more. But we close ourselves off from that evidence to make us feel better about ourselves and how we exploit them. That's why we forbid ourselves from even using the term someone when referring to an animal, because it might make us feel bad. This just gives us the chance to overlook the animals, to maintain the delusion that somehow we humans are separate, that we're some kind of separate category of being from the animals, when we are animals. And although we are different, we're both sufficiently worthy. Many of the people who praised Emily and honored Emily the cow and cheered her on as she escaped the slaughterhouse, many of those same people were the ones who contributed to causing Emily to be inside of that slaughterhouse in the first place. I mean, how hypocritical can we be? How careless can we be? We, the humans who proclaim that we're too good to be associated with the animals, are displaying nothing but sheer mindlessness, hypocrisy, and arrogance. Perhaps we are the true animals, the ones acting upon pure instinct and nothing more.